Let me find out who your parents are. Let me find out what they're teaching them at home to make sure we see eye to eye, or at least they understand what type of music we play at barbecues, you know, this and that, because I think that's what true community is. And it's easier to have a conversation when you feel comfortable with someone.
So maybe, and this is just an idea, so maybe, and I'm hearing what you're saying, that's pretty profound, maybe these, you know, part 2, part 3, part 4 of this roundtable, maybe needs to be occurring in our living rooms.
It's not a maybe, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe instead of, you know, maybe, you know, we gotta come over and, you know.
It definitely doesn't just stop here.
Right.
You know, like what Lonnie was saying, you know, it's not just they're changing or other races changing their mentality towards us, it's us also changing our mentality of how we deal with them. You know, so we have the tendency to express ourselves in violence. So somebody pisses us off, we're ready to fight. You know, and I applaud what's going on now with most of these rallies, that they're peaceful protests, because now this is something different. So the media doesn't kind of construe what the message is, and they just don't highlight the negativity. So we as Black people also have to kind of, you know, change our mentality, change how we address situations, and kind of, in a sense, you know, have some type of conflict control, so that we can intellectually express ourselves, instead of just expressing ourselves in outrage. Because what happens when we express ourselves in outrage? Now the police get called, and the police comes, and then we go to jail, and now
and what they say about us is right.
And then it just now we're digging ourselves into a deeper hole, and now we got a record, and now we can't get it. So it's a cycle that never ends. So we just gotta, on both sides, we just gotta change how we communicating, how we talking, or, you know, to make it better.
You brought a good point, and I'm going to direct this. We'll start with Audrey, maybe, unless she wants to pass to somebody else. But I've asked you guys to prepare questions for me. Maybe you know, for this whole week, you know, last couple of weeks, you see things, and the raw emotion gets you, and then after a couple of days, you know, it starts to be tempered with information. And if you've been in our church for a while, you realize that I am not a fan of the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is probably the most powerful force in the country, right? Because they get to shape opinion, and they feed you the stories that they want you to listen to, and they have a great bias. So here's my hard question, and I hope, you know, my hard question is, how much of what we've seen do we hold the media responsible for? In other words, is it possible? I always wonder this, and please forgive me, is the media playing us? Is that a fair question, or I mean?
100%.
Yeah, you know, I hope, because I am very suspicious of what they report, and they want to shape us, and you know, I think my feeling is that the media makes money out of keeping us divided. They love the narrative to divide us, and so I wonder. That's all I'm saying.
I believe that that they do that. I think for us, sometimes I feel as a Black person, as a Black woman, that the way they come at us from an emotional point of view. We're constantly stirred. Our emotions are constantly stirred up. I'm not saying that when you kill somebody, like George Floyd, I mean, that was anger across the board for people that saw that. So it transcended color, because we were looking at somebody being murdered in front of our eyes. And that just added to the past and the history of Black people. But in the same breath, the media doesn't treat Black, like that a retired police officer that went to defend his friend's
St. Louis, yeah.
pawn shop that was murdered in cold blood, recorded, right? They talked about it and it went on. As if it didn't matter, this man didn't matter. So, but if a white man is killing us, that matters. Stir us, stir us, stir us, stir us. We're angry, we're looting, and then I think that I'm saying to myself, I feel like I'm saying sometimes, in the aspect of the media, I feel like I'm being played. I feel like I'm being just stirred up, stirred up, stirred up, stirred up, and they don't give me an answer. They tell me, okay, they'll say some stuff like, you have insurance, you can always get your store back. But in a life, this person lost their life. Yes, a life is a life, you can't bring that back. But no, you can bring your store back. So they start to kind of come up with stuff and listen, this is somebody's livelihood. This is a person that probably, had an idea, created it, and could hire a couple of people that could feed me and my family. That's important. So don't tell me that I can get insurance. I might never be able to come back with my business. So there's all these different aspects. And my emotion, one day, okay, just stir me. The police is gonna kill me. The police is gonna kill my son. The police is gonna kill my daughter. You're Black, remember that. White people hate you, stir me. I can't think, I can't breathe, my mind is gonna blow up. So it's just like, geez Louise, what is going on? I don't see, the KKK is gonna get me. America's a racist country, and you gotta believe you're a Black man, you're like this, and then I gotta tell my sons, oh, be careful, play the law, because you always have to have your phone on, because the white man is gonna get you. Stir my emotions, I'm just like all over the place. There's reality in it, but they're stirring me. For what reason? What do they get out of that? They sell more newspapers? They make more money off me? They don't have, all the years this has been happening, not one of them ever came up with a solution. Martin Luther King came up with a solution. Why? Because it was Christ-driven. Mm-hmm. All this other stuff is just evil being played on me. That's how I feel. I'm stirred up with nowhere to go. And half of the time, it's not even real. You're just stirring me, for what? Now, I just want to backtrack a little bit with Malcolm X. Malcolm X was Black power all the way, and that's why I believe he was defeated. But at the end of Malcolm X's life, Malcolm started to change his mind when he went to Mecca. And when he was walking around that stone that they think Muhammad is, he could not believe how many white Muslims were there. He came back with a different point of view to include all people as God's people, and his mind changed, and they killed him, because the Nation of Islam in America did not want that language. They didn't want to say Black, white, purple, or blue, or Muslims. They just wanted to Black, hate the white man, Black, hate the white man, hate Jews, stir us. With what? Because racism, at the end of the day, is an evil. And I think Black people are being played. Our history is real. Slavery is real. We have suffered, but also racism under that umbrella is gonna have me live in cower in fear all the time. It's not gonna give me a solution. The media does not give me, as a Black person, the solution. It doesn't. Christ does. How do I get that message out? Who's gonna listen to me? Who's gonna listen to me?
I'm gonna come
And
back.
what does that message look like?
I'm gonna come back on the issue of media, but I heard Morgan Freeman.
Oh.
He was interviewed recently on how to stop racism. And he says, you wanna stop racism? Stop reporting that a white cop killed an innocent Black man, and start reporting that a corrupt cop killed innocently. What do you guys think about that? And by the way, he denies that there is white privilege or that there is systemic racism that we're gonna talk about in our next talk. I told you I'm gonna ask you some hard questions. But we'll leave it for you later for it to kind of ruminate a little bit, but I mean, and the reason I bring up what Morgan Freeman says, because I think him, Denzel Washington share the same views. I say that because like I said, I'm suspicious of the media. I wonder what responsibility the media plays in this.
I don't think they like black people.
Anybody else
That's just my
want
take on it.
Anybody else want to give a jab at that one?
I mean, it's an ideal. I mean, when you look back in the history of black people, white people always found a new name to call us. Why? Because black people will find good in evil, like the N-word. Now they use it as a greeting now, basically. When that didn't work, they changed, oh, let's call them African Americans. But we embraced it afterwards. And I know people be like, oh, what's so bad about African Americans? It's the ideal. They call you African American, why? Because guess what, you're black, you're African before you ever be an American. That's basically where it came from. Because I know white people aren't natives of this land, Hispanics not natives of this land, they all came from Europe. They don't call them European American. But it's just the ideal, they call them blacks. They call them black to people back in the day didn't like being called black. They call them Negroes. We begin to embrace the word and change it into something different. So I understand the ideal of where Morgan Freeman is coming from. He was like, look, we're a man. You're a man, I'm a man. That's basically where it comes from. We're all of one race, human race.
And in a way, I agree.
I understand where it comes from.
I agree because I hate, it makes me uncomfortable to refer to someone according to their race. I think it just should be descriptive of the color of your skin. It has nothing to do with your character, it has nothing to do with who you are as a person. So I don't want to favor you or unfavor you because of the race. You know, just treat you like the person that God created you to be. Right. So I don't, but anyway, good. Somebody else.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Let's start with ourselves, right? How we react to situations feeds into the media narrative. The media is a business entity. So what sells, usually sex, violence, something of that nature is what sells. So if we're making a big uproar and we're blowing stuff up and we're creating chaos, hey, that camera is on and people are watching and everybody's saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. But if we out there peaceful protesting and just walking through the streets and trying to get our voices heard, you don't see that. For instance, last week when the rally started, the media had coverage on, usually the news comes on at 6, they'll come on at 10, and they come on at 11. And it comes on for an hour, and then it shuts down. The rallies took place.
Breaking news.
But it only took place breaking news when the fire started. Everything else but a peaceful rally, the whole day, it was good. It was good. Everything was fine, no issues. But the minute time somebody they started throwing tear gas and fire started and it started rioting and they started fighting, the media had coverage from 5 o'clock in the afternoon to like 1 o'clock in the morning, showing riots. And then I rode through Wynwood last weekend with my kids, just to show them, hey, rather than stay in the car, hey, we're supporting them from a distance. I saw a black news reporter with her camera, with her mic and her camera, and because they were just peaceful protesting, I didn't see Channel 6 reporting anything until they went on I-95 and blocked I-95, and then the camera came on. And when you look at the news that night, the news only came on, only 5 minutes showed the news just, hey, protesters are in outrage again, they are blocking the street on I-95. And that was it. The whole day they protested from like 3 o'clock in the afternoon until like 9 o'clock at night, and the media did not cover that. So and then you could,
They're not interested in peaceful protests,
yeah, you
right?
could, but you can still.
You almost wonder if they send people in there to instigate that.
But that's
I don't
what
listen.
that's
I don't-
what
I
sells.
don't trust them.
Peaceful protesting does not sell. It does not sell. Just look on an everyday basis. Where if you look at the news, you're gonna see a black male with dreads, and this is what they profile. This is what they profile. He robbed somebody. He did this. But you know, other races are doing the same thing. But those races are not publicized as much as what the black people would be. So I think the media has a big influence on how we are perceived.
And I think, just me speaking pastorally, you're members of the church, and what I say to you, I say to everybody else. I'm an equal opportunity offender at this point. That we have to be very discerning, don't we? When we watch the news, not saying that it's not true. Lord, give me wisdom, and Lord, how do you want me to react or respond to this? What's the biblical response to this? How can I be used as how can I be used by you to bring about your perspective? Because we could very easily, things can turn volatile. I mean, we're fragile people. Our circumstances are so fragile. One little slip up, and we sink into chaos. I mean, that's not, something that is exclusive to a particular race. We're a lot like that, So I think that we got to really pray for discernment. I think as our country as a whole, we're at the crossroads, aren't we? We really need a revival. We need a revival. We need renewal. I think one of the great revivals in this country was started by William Seymour, a man whose parents were slaves. He wasn't even allowed. In fact, here's how interesting it was, is that he wasn't even allowed to attend Bible school in a traditional way. He had to stay outside his classroom. Okay, and one of the guys that taught him was one of the great evangelists of the day. His name was Parnham. And Parnham was a sympathizer with the KKK. Because almost everybody that was white back then did, and yet God used Seymour with seeing all the injustices and seeing all the things that he experienced as a young man. God used him to bring about unity, and the unity was so real that the reporters that day say, the blood of Christ has erased all color lines. Man, we need that, though. We need that. We gotta pray for that. Any closing thoughts before I think this is probably a good time to end it right here. We're going on about it. Wow.
I think that we're doing the deep dive in a sense where we're gonna be vulnerable, we're gonna get uncomfortable, because out of the talk right now, other people have been invited into the panel and expressing how they feel and what their experience is. We're gonna be vulnerable. We're probably gonna say things that are scary, maybe.
Things that are wrong. We may say things that are wrong.
Like,
Things that need to say, hey, you said that, and I was offended by that. Right.
And that's like I call it. That's what I'm saying. It's a deep dive. It's going to. But I think that's where the change is going to come. The clarity and understanding, brotherly love, and from a Christ perspective. And we're going to have to model what that means. And I think all across America, churches are really coming to the table in regards to this, because we see it all over YouTube. And I think in my lifetime, this is the first experience I'm having where this kind of situation, people are actually talking and are willing to be vulnerable to do the deep dive, to cross the great divide. So yeah, we come to church on Sundays, we say, yes, you know, we're part of Pure Heart, and we're multicultural and everything like that, and then, or when we go outside, is that following us? You know, are we really ambassadors of that? So, you know, we're gonna start, do the deep dive into
The
us.
deep dive, and the deep dive requires of us to forgive
Yeah.
our abusers, doesn't it?
Of course, that's the only way we move forward.
Whether the abusers were someone, our neighbor down the street, just recently, someone in the church. And that's the only way that Christ would expect us to deal with this. We have to start from the framework of, if we're going to love, that means we're going to forgive. And we have to give each other a little bit of, maybe a lot of latitude, maybe a lot of grace, because we received a lot of grace. But you know, my hope and my prayer is that this talk today will serve to reignite hope in people. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your heart and your mind, and thank you for being committed enough to return to the table. We're gonna get this right eventually, because the Lord is on our side, right? And if we're committed to doing things God's way, you know, God's always gonna have our back, and He's always gonna give us the solutions, and that's the biggest commitment that we need to make here today is, you know, my commitment is to Christ and the cause of Christ, and that compels me to do what Christ has asked of me to do interracially, you know, intergenerationally, relating to one another in a biblical way. I end by just saying once again, thank you, and I'm blessed that you guys would allow me into your circle and share these experiences that have been so powerful, and insight that I think is so necessary.
Real quick before we end. I think we have the nation's voice, or have the nation's attention. And we just basically have to keep our knee on racism, right? In retrospect, we have their attention. Look at the power that we have, our monetary power, our political power. Look at how big businesses are blacking out and writing posts, Black Lives Matter. Why? Because our money matters to them. They don't want to lose the revenue.